So I recently spoke about Sydney McLaughlin-Levrone and how I thought that she should focus on the 400-meter hurdles this year as opposed to the open 400 like she attempted in 2023. And lo and behold, she actually announced just this past weekend that she will be focusing on the 400-meter hurdles at the U.S. Olympic trials. Of course, she won't be attempting the double. That schedule was always impossible at the Olympic Games. So we're going to see her focusing in on the hurdles. Now, on top of that, I think the same day or the day after or something like that, she was in LA at the LA Grand Prix and managed to run a 22.07 second personal best in the 200-meter dash, and she actually beat out an insanely strong field. You're talking about Jenna Prandini, Abby Steiner, Gabby Thomas, Brittany Brown, Rashida Adeleke. She beat out a 200-meter field, and that really proved to the world that not only is she very much in form, but she is very much on pace to go to the Olympic Games and defend her title. Now, yes, she has to qualify at the Olympic trials to get to the Olympic Games. She's actually going to be running the 400-meter hurdles down in Atlanta on May 31st, so we'll see her there. But this really gave a huge indication of what she is more than capable of. So, of course, we know she is a defending Olympic champion at the Tokyo Olympic Games. She's a world champion from Eugene 2022. She has the world record of, 50.68 seconds, which she ran in Eugene. That is the only time under 51 seconds that, I can't even say broke a barrier. It literally broke the event in terms of what was possible. Think back to 2019. The world record before Dalilah Muhammad broke it was 51.2 seconds, I think. And then Dalilah Muhammad ran 51.20, then 51.17. And then, of course, we just started seeing 51 seconds off the charts. Now, considering this 22.07, I think she is well ahead of world record pace. Now, if she dropped a 400-meter hurdle race right now, like in Atlanta on May 31st, I don't think she's going to run 50 seconds. But I do think she is on a very strong trajectory to get ahead of that 50.68. Now, I'm not ready to say that she's going to run 49 seconds. That is absolutely insane. And I think we like to project kind of these, insane performances that we think an athlete can do based on what we've seen before. But I don't think she's at the point where she's ready to run 49, in my personal opinion. She could run it this year. I'd love to be pleasantly surprised, but I think she's more than capable of running like 50.4, 50.3 or something like that. Who knows? Sydney could shock us all, but I think this 200-meter performance really proves that. I put out a thing on Twitter saying, what could she run in the 400, considering her personal best is 48.74 from last year. But I think she could run like a 48.4. I don't think world record or sub 48, that's like really, really out there. Similar to how I think 49 seconds in the hurdles is very much out there. But I think at the end of the day, she is very much ahead of pace when talking about her potential in the 400-meter hurdles. On top of that, she ran, I think 13.71 seconds in the 100-meter hurdles, which is her second fastest performance ever in that event. So again, she is very much on pace to what she's done previously when talking about her talents in the 400-meter hurdles. I'm looking forward to seeing what she's going to be doing in Atlanta, as well as the U.S. Olympic trials when we get to next month in June. Now, when we're looking at the landscape of the 400-meter hurdles, the big conversation has always been about Sydney McLaughlin-Levrone versus Femke Bol. Of course, prior to 2023, everyone was saying that Sydney was the woman. But then when she dipped into the 400 and Femke Bol kind of quote-unquote took over in the sense of, winning the gold medal at the World Championships, running 51 seconds a bunch of times throughout the year as well, 51.45 as her personal best, number 2 all time. I think this kind of put people onto the thought that maybe she could beat Sydney McLaughlin-Levrone. On top of that, she had the world indoor record in the 400 from last year. She then improved upon it this year on 2 occasions, right? Once in the season and then once at the World Indoor Championships. And she had been running extremely consistent, setting personal bests across the board in the 200 and the 400, all that stuff. But I think that Sydney McLaughlin-Levrone, what she did with this 200-meter performance is proved why she was always the favorite in the 400-meter hurdles. Yes, I may get a little bit of flack for that, but I think it was pretty clear that she was always a favorite. She just dipped into the 400. She ran 48.74. So she proved that she was still a very strong force. She was very much in form. Yes, she got a little bit injured, but I don't think Femke Bol was ever in the conversation of potentially beating Sydney McLaughlin-Levrone unless Sydney was going to take a step back or, not going to perform to the best of her ability when talking about the hurdles. But right now, considering that Femke Bol had run 11.4 seconds in the 100 this year already, I think that was a personal best for her. She also ran 22.6 indoors in the 200. She hasn't run an outdoor 200 yet, but that's her personal best for her. It just making the comparisons from Sydney to Femke, it just isn't there, again, when talking about the talent and the ability. Now, in my opinion right now, and I've actually been saying it for the past year or so, I think that Femke Bol is going to break 51 seconds in the 400-meter hurdles. I actually thought that she would do it last year, leading up to the World Championships or at the World Championships. She unfortunately didn't do it there, but I think that knowing Sydney is in kind of essentially the form of her life, knowing that Sydney is very likely going to run 50 seconds this year, I think that's going to motivate Femke to not only step things up, but also really try and contend to, go for a much faster time, make sure that her step pattern is very much intact, right? She switched her, steps when talking about the 400-meter hurdles last year. I think that Femke is going to run sub 51 seconds. Now, I don't think she's going to run 50.68 or even 50.7. I think that Femke is probably in line to run 50.9 or 50.8. I mean, we really have to contextualize how insanely fast that 50.6 seconds is, and already Sydney is probably going to surpass that. So I think it's going to be a very, very good kind of competition and kind of race between Femke and Sydney. Sydney, I think, is way ahead of Femke, but I do like where Femke is at. And again, I do want to harp on the motivational piece. I know that athletes love to say that, yeah, I'm not looking at my competition, or, I'm just focused on my lane. But I think they'd be lying to say that other athletes running fast doesn't motivate them to the slightest bit, right? Even if it's just a little bit, you see that someone drops an insanely fast time, that's definitely going to give you a slight motivation to be a little bit better, to, push yourself a little bit more, and to do what you can do to, potentially beat that athlete or at least surpass your personal best or something like that. So I do think this is going to motivate Femke a lot, and I think that Sydney is going to be doing some really, really big damage to the 400-meter hurdles this year. Other thing I do want to address with them is we know that Sydney McLaughlin-Levrone doesn't frequently compete on the circuit or throughout the year. She'll run maybe 1 or 2 400-meter hurdle races in some random meet, down in the USA, and then some random meet in Europe, maybe, and then of course go to the Olympics and World Championships. And then Femke Bol is the complete opposite, where she's racing a full indoor season, a full outdoor season, every single Diamond League that has the 400-meter hurdles, of course going to the World Championships, and she's running consistently fast. People kind of criticize Sydney for not running as frequently as they would like her to. I would love to see her run frequently as well, and maybe I'm slightly critical, but for the most part, I can't be too critical of an athlete who competes extremely frequently versus an athlete who barely competes at all, right? If Sydney McLaughlin-Levrone is going to get to the World Championships or the Olympic Games and perform in the way that's going to get her the best performances, going to get her to that gold medal, going to get her to that 50.68, it's hard for me to be critical about it. Yes, as a fan, I do want to see her compete all the time, but I also want to see her perform her best at the World Championships. Same thing for Femke Bol. It's strange because sometimes I do see people say, oh, do athletes run too frequently, or should athletes kind of, dial back all the times that they're racing? But then Femke Bol is out there all the time, and we love it. She runs fast, but I can't say that Sydney should be running as much as Femke, or Sydney should be running more. I don't know. Whatever she's doing is clearly working and getting her to personal bests, getting her to medals, gold medals at the World Championships and Olympics. So I can't be too critical. Again, as a fan, I would love to see her run all the time, but that's just overall what I think, at least in terms of how much they race. Now, those two, of course, are the very clear top twos when we're talking about the podium at the Olympic Games later on this summer, but we still have a bronze medal that needs to go out. Look at the other women who have kind of been stacking up some really strong performances just behind them really already in 2024. For example, Rushell Clayton from Jamaica. She's a 2-time bronze medalist from 2023 last year, as well as 2019 at the Doha World Championships. She's run a personal best of 50.81 seconds to get that bronze last year, but already this year, she's run 53.72 seconds and 53.98 seconds. So the 53.72 is one of her fastest times of her career. Already starting off in very, very good shape. I know that she wants to not only get on the podium again, potentially go for something farther, but I like where Rushell Clayton is at. Also, Anna Cockrell. In my opinion, I think Anna Cockrell is the next best when we're talking about the 400-meter hurdles right now this year. Between Rushell Clayton and Anna Cockrell, those two are kind of fighting for the bronze in a sense leading up to the Paris Olympic Games. Anna has a personal best of 53.34 seconds, but this year already she's run 53.75 and 53.76, which are 2 of her fastest performances ever. So she is in the form of her life. She made the World Championship final last year where she finished 5th place. She also made the Tokyo Olympic Games final. She unfortunately got DQ'd, but she ran very strong in that final. So I like where Anna Cockrell is at. I like where she's going, and she is very much in the conversation for a medal. You also have some others like Shamier Little. Shamier Little has run 52.39 seconds. She's one of the fastest all time in the event. She got the silver medal at the World Championships last year in Budapest, silver medal in 2015 when she was still at Texas A&M. So I like the potential that she has to not only get on the podium again, potentially improve her personal best. I've always been of the opinion that Shamier Little is very likely to run sub 52 seconds. Let's see how the season progresses and if she's going to be able to get there, but always keeping a lookout for Shamier Little. Now, Kemi Adekoya from Bahrain. She she is kind of a wild card in a sense where she's run 53.09 seconds. She got 4th place, I think, at the Budapest World Championships last year. And I think this year, you know, she's run at the World Relays. I don't think she had a very strong split when talking about, you know, the 4x4 and mixed 4x4 for Bahrain. But she is kind of a wild card again. 4th place at Budapest last year. She could drop something insanely fast, getting into those 52 seconds and really, really contend for a podium spot. You also have Dalilah Muhammad. Now, Dalilah Muhammad is, you know, kind of a question mark at this point, considering she's dealt with so many injuries year after year throughout, you know, really her entire career. Even dating back to 2019, before the USA, she actually, I think, suffered a concussion or something like that, a freak accident in practice, but then she went on to set the world records. In 2021 at the Tokyo Olympics, leading into the Olympic trials, she was dealing with injuries, with COVID, hamstring injury, but she managed to get on the team and she managed to run 51.5 to get the silver medal behind Sydney. Now, also the year after in 2022, she was dealing with injuries, but she managed to get on the podium. Last year in Budapest was the first time that she, you know, unfortunately didn't get onto the podium. I think dating all the way back to what, 2015, right? She medaled in 2016, all the way up to 2022. So she's been dealing with injuries. It's going to be tough to see Dalilah Muhammad get on the podium considering the talent and considering where she's at. I would love to see her get on the podium. In my opinion, this might be controversial. I think Dalilah Muhammad is currently the GOAT of the 400-meter hurdles. It's a young event, but considering all the accolades, considering the performances, I think she's a GOAT. Go ahead, debate me in the comments. I don't care. But Dalilah Muhammad, another one in the conversation. You also have Janieve Russell from Jamaica. She's finished 7th place in Budapest and 4th place at the Tokyo Olympics. Always in the conversation there. Andrenette Knight from Jamaica. She's very much had a very strong 2023 season. She finished 8th place in Budapest, so didn't get on the podium, didn't do very well, but she's very much one to keep an eye out for. I think her personal best is 53.2 seconds, so always on the lookout for Knight. And then you also have a few others who are in the conversation as well. But the landscape of the 400-meter hurdles, I know it's always nice. We're focusing in on Cindy McLaughlin-Levrone, Femke Bol, that head-to-head. They've only raced 2 times in their entire careers, Tokyo Olympic Games and the Eugene World Championships, but who knows? We're gonna see them get to the, you know, Olympic Games hopefully this year, healthy, ready to go, and ready to put on some amazing performances. So that's just a kind of overview of the landscape of the women's 400-meter hurdles right now. Cindy McLaughlin-Levrone, Femke Bol, top 2 clear favorites for the gold and silver. Then you have a plethora of women who are really, really vying it out for the bronze medal behind them too. And don't sleep on the rest of the field. Yes, they're not running 51 seconds, they're not running 52 low, but these women are really, really making the event competitive. And I love kind of those, you know, smaller storylines behind the big headlines. This really is going to be a fight for the bronze medal. So let me know what you think about the women's 400-meter hurdles. Let me know what you think about Cindy McLaughlin-Levrone and her potential in the 400-meter hurdles this year, as well as Femke Bol. Do you think Femke Bol is going to be able to break, you know, 51 seconds and go 50? Do you think Cindy McLaughlin-Levrone is going to be able to run 49 seconds? Again, I'm not ready to say all that, but we're going to see how things progress. I would love to be pleasantly surprised. Let me know what you think. Thanks for watching, y'all.